Welcome. I'm Johnita Stanton. We have Reginald Perriman and Shaka Williams. We are TSARE. This is a There's Something About Real Estate podcast where we talk all things real estate.
I feel like when you say my name, I should like pop my collar.
Perriman.
You got that music, that walk-off music that you have.
Right. Yeah, that's dope.
So we didn't want to talk about all right, never mind. All right, I digress. Let me move forward. How's the day going today, guys?
It's going good. I'm putting out fires.
You putting out fires?
Everybody else.
All the time.
Yeah, like I need to know though, because that happened. You know, a lot of times I'm sitting up and I'm like, okay, I'm sitting here putting out fires. So does that mean that we're like physically, got fires lit and we're like, fanning them out? Or does that mean something else?
Well, actually, that actual fire has happened to me one time on a rental property.
What?
Yeah, it was a vacant house, and somebody was trying to squat in it, and they was trying to steal electricity, and the wire fell on the back of the house. Unfortunately, the person is no longer here, but
From that?
yeah.
Oh.
I got called by the police because the wire fell on the back of the house. And the electric wire, you can see down aluminum siding. It was just like
Right,
a
that's
split. You burned. Fit right.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah,
can't be stealing power unless you know it. You shouldn't be stealing power.
right.
Don't mess with that. Electricity, I'm like one of them people. I know electricity, but I respect it, just like water.
Yeah.
So explain what that means in the real estate world when someone asks, like, Reggie, Shaka, how's your day? And you're like, man, we just been putting out fires all day. That's the day.
Problems.
That's my job.
Yeah.
That's how I make my money every day, is by solving the issues, putting out the fires all day.
Right.
That's my job.
It's the stuff when somebody be like, oh, I'm going to sell my house by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but what's funny is they don't usually run into the issues as much. But when they do, it just like kill the deal. And they like, I didn't know you had to go through this. I'm like, yeah, this is common for us. Mm-hmm. But the fires is how professionals earn their money.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It's crazy that you explain it like that, because I had a listing appointment, and that was the thing. They have they had a buyer that they want to work with, and I'm like, that's great.
Right.
By all means, you give it a try.
Yeah.
But when you run into a situation, then who's going to be there to navigate that issue for you? So funny story. When I looked at, how we'll go and run a PRD just to see what's happening, and I'm looking at this title, and I'm like, oh yeah, y'all about to have all types of title issues.
Right.
Sure enough, I sent it over, for pre-title, and it's probably 7 to 8 names on the list that have to be this person. All these, interests have to be. We have to, make sure.
Right. Yeah, you're either quiet title suit or yeah.
So
those are the names.
I still don't have the listing. You have a group of people. The one person is like, give it to the realtor, let the realtor do their job. And the other people are like, oh, we could do it. And I'm like, y'all just call me when y'all ready.
No.
They're going to do it. What they do is they started out on their own, and they call you and ask you a bunch of questions, but they still don't want to pay you.
Nope.
Right.
So what happened in this situation was, before I left the house that day, I said, this is the last advice that I'll be giving without a contract.
Right. Yeah. Because what happened is you take on that deal or that listing or that client, and you have all of these issues they're dealing with, and it's like they want to just keep asking, and they're trying to solve it themselves when they can't, because they don't have the experience or know-how, or they go out and hire an attorney, which is cool, but then at the end of the day, it's like they're paying a lot more for something you already knew the answer to.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a person, their attorney was going to charge them $2,500 to set up their LLC so that they could purchase the property that they're buying in cash in the LLC's name.
So,
like what?
So you can set up an LLC yourself, right?
Yep.
And yeah,
same issue.
And it's simple. You can create your own operating agreement, but most people don't know they need an operating agreement. And if you got partners, I would recommend getting an attorney. to draft it. But here's the thing. So many people create an LLC and buy the property, but most people don't. I guarantee you 90% of the people don't understand what documents they need to sell the property when it's in the name of an LLC.
That's why the attorney, that's where me and Reggie disagree at, right? That's why my best friend is the title company. Because even if you don't know,
right,
if you become friends with the title company and you let them know what your intentions are, they're gonna walk you through all that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say basically for free.
So this is where I'm getting back to the fire though. All that's fine, they can get the information for free, but when they list that property on the market, right? Say it's 4 members in the LLC, right? And there's no operating agreement. When do most people find out they need an operating agreement? At closing.
Yeah. Well,
I'm saying most people.
Yeah.
Because most people don't have an operating agreement.
You're talking about specifically, I set this LLC up to buy these properties.
Right.
And then I'm getting ready to go to closing 2 days. We get our third close. We're getting ready to, or we're somewhere within the lender and the title company are talking. That's probably 3 to 7 days.
Right.
And now somebody's sending me a message saying, where's the operating agreement? Where's the signing authority? Where are the documents that give you the
which is not at closing though. It's prior to closing, but I hear what y'all saying.
No, you talking about people that understand it on a higher level. I'm talking about the person that went and set up their LLC with their partners. They're like, we're gonna flip properties. They brought the property because most people don't require the operating agreement when you buy it, right? Well, at least they didn't used to. They don't. But now a year later or 6 months later, they go to sell the property. It's listed. Everything is fine. You get ready to close. And that title company says, we need an operating agreement or a resolution to authorize who's authorized to sign the closing docs. And 90% of the people say, what's an operating agreement? Yeah. What's a resolution? So that becomes a fire because now you got to figure it out. You know it, but you can't create the document for them because you don't know what their understanding is that should be in the operating agreement.
Right. Or if Shaka wasn't involved on that transaction, do they even know when they're purchasing the property to use a title company?
Exactly.
What type of deed did they decide to take?
Exactly.
And then now we go to sell the property, what did I have help with in the beginning when I purchased the property? What did I have help with in the end? In the end, now that I'm selling the property.
Right.
For sure. So, I want to know. So the reason why this came up because I was on I'm actually in the middle of, I had fires last week. I've been in fires all this week. And one of my clients asked me, he's like, well, how do we avoid this?
Right.
And I'm like, well, what we try to do, some of us, is to educate the buyer.
Right.
But on this end of the deal, I'm representing the seller. And then we do our best to vet the agent and the loan officer that you're going to accept the offer from. But when you get a bank approval, let's say a bank, not like a broker or a direct lender, but a bank.
Right.
Bank of America, Flagstar Bank, whoever, Chase Bank, whoever bank. And you're like, okay, great. This is a bank. Typically, they underwrite first.
Right.
It seems like a great deal. But in this particular issue, so as it was explained, the buyer made a large deposit from an entity.
Right.
Now we have to figure out what this entity is.
Right.
Oh, it's a business. Well, we need the business tax returns.
Yep.
So the seller is like, well, why wasn't this asked for 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Right.
Because the buyer did not show that business 3 or 4 weeks ago. There was no knowledge of it. So this is, it could have been, so we don't know if the agent had the conversation of don't make any large deposits. We don't know if the loan officer had the conversation of don't make any large deposits.
Right.
But maybe they had those conversations, but then the borrower still felt like this is just me giving myself money, no problem. And then they go make a move without consulting their team. And now we have a fire.
Right. Most fires start because people people don't consult with somebody in advance, or somebody wasn't proactive.
So was it avoidable?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I need more information.
Well, we don't have. So that's the whole thing. If we are representing one side of the table in this situation, we're on the seller side. We don't know. So let's say the realtor and LO did their consultations,
Right.
but then the borrower still felt like
It's no
big deal.
Yeah, but
I
it's
didn't
still
even know that was
avoidable.
that question.
Right.
So it depends on. So okay, did the deposit? They needed that money to close, or was this just a deposit from out of nowhere? Because there's two different issues there.
No, it becomes the same issue, because if they've been showing the lender funds from this account. So when you first get your pre-approval or whatever you're going for, you submit whatever your 2 months of bank statements are from. Whatever the entity is, you give them that. But then let's say you're running through the deal now, it's been past whatever time, you got to submit another month of bank statements, right?
Right.
All right, I submit this month of bank statements, and then when I submit this month of bank statements, there is a deposit that came in from some company somewhere.
Right.
Now that has to all be explained.
But it had to be sourced though, so it could be explained in a simple letter of explanation. So it only has to be sourced if they needed that money, if that money is going to this transaction.
No, and certain FHA, and I'm not for sure if it's VA and FHA, maybe Reggie knows, but there are guidelines that says that you cannot receive any deposits more than 1% of the sales price
Yeah,
of the property, and that's not for funds used to close. That is period. It can't be.
Here's the thing. I don't care what loan it is. I don't care what the guidelines is. We all know that it has to either be explained or sourced, right? So if you were expecting to clear the close today, everything else is fine, and all of a sudden you get this new bank statement, and that's on there, whether it has to be explained or sourced or both, that delays the closing.
Exactly.
So that becomes a bigger fire, because when we talk about a fire, it's never a small fire. It's always layers. This fire created something else, because now the lender told you Monday, oh, we'll have it clear to close by Wednesday. We're just updating bank statements, right? But Wednesday this issue comes up. Now we're not going to close this week, and probably not next week. But the seller that's selling the house to this buyer is also buying another property contingent upon this one closing. So now you're putting out fires all over the place on just one transaction that just domino effect to something else, right? So whether it has to be sourced or just explained, it becomes an issue like, okay,
We're far in that one.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't feel so, like, from the perspective when I'm sitting back thinking about it, if this person truly just had a lack of understanding of what was going on,
Right.
I don't know how the realtor, the other realtor, the MLO, like, how does anyone know that this woman just decided to say, I send myself money all the time?
The LO should have known. So the LO should have. I mean,
Seen
if
it.
you were a good LO, you should be paying attention to those things.
But some people don't put everything on their application. Like you mentioned, it came from a business entity that they own, right? Right? What if they didn't put that business entity on?
Well, that was the problem. The business was never even a thing. So, like, when I'm vetting clients, I will ask,
Right.
do you have any other businesses? When you filed your tax returns, did you take any loss? Sometimes I'll ask the question more specific. Like, you wanted to get some money back, so you took a $10,000, $5,000,
Right.
$20,000, whatever the loss was. Did that happen?
Right.
That off answers whatever it is, but you have to have enough education to be able to go through these things. But if the borrower says no,
Right.
and then you're a week from closing trying to get updated documents, like, now are you getting to the point of that updated document came in, you should have looked at it first.
Well, I'm just saying, so to me, that only matters if you're using that money. If you need that money for this transaction, that's when that becomes an issue. So that's either a simple fix or it's a difficult fix. It's as simple as LOX.
You saying you can back it out?
It's still a simple fix.
Not at tax return.
But at that moment, it's a fire. I don't care if it's a simple fix or they got to go.
So a little fire or a big fire though. So a little fire meaning I got to explain the LOX. Yeah, I get it.
It impacts so many other moving parts, right? You got the seller that's waiting to close to do something else, relocate or whatever. It's still a fire. We're not closing on time, basically.
Well, I wish you can, because with the LOX, we can get that signed today. I can have you write a LOX and we get that over to underwriting and we still gonna close tomorrow. But if we got to get tax returns and you don't already have tax returns, now you're talking about maybe the deal not even going through it.
And that's the problem.
But see, here's the problem with that. You say we can get that signed today. Today at what time? Because after 1 or 2 o'clock, you technically are falling into the next day.
For sure.
And
Every day, if this happens on Wednesday and you get it resolved on Thursday, most likely you closing on Monday.
Yep.
That's a different week. What does that mean to the other parties involved? That's what I'm saying.
If all that happens, that's on the LO.
That's what I'm saying. So, and then in this particular situation, so how do you manage the expectations? Like, how do you manage to keep everybody calm? Like, what's the conversation that you're going to have with the seller client? What's the conversation that's going to be happening with the borrower? Like, what are these conversations? Like, how do you keep people calm in like the fire and in the middle of the storm?
So I tell people this type of stuff happens. We can't control it. All we can do is look for it and work on a solution right now. Because I just had a situation where we were supposed to close on a deal October 6th, but on the buyer was at risk of possibly going on strike with UAW and everything. So the loan rep was like, we have to close this week, meaning on that particular Friday, it was like 2 weeks before the actual date we were targeting, that October 6th date. So on that Thursday at 2 o'clock, the loan rep calls and says, we have to close this deal today at 2 p.m. Most title companies need 48 hours to close, prepare all the docs. And it was a split title. So one of the title companies said, no, we're not going to be able to do it. So everybody agreed, the title company that can do it, that's who we going to work with. So they canceled everything. The issue was the buyer had sold a property and left all their funds with the other title company, which wasn't a big deal because it wasn't going to fund it till the next day. They were just going to wire it over to the other title company. In the midst of all this, we pulled it off. They agreed to close. We closed at 6:30 that day. During closing, the buyer said, we need to be out of our place by Monday. And the seller said, I wasn't expecting to move until the 6th. I only agreed to close today because you were at risk of being laid off and we don't know what's going to happen and how long. So they agreed that they would give her until October 3rd. Well, October 3rd, that Friday, that day, like 2 or 3 days before, I forgot what day it was, but on that Saturday, they're like, we need to move in today. They were having some issues. The seller let them put their furniture in the basement because they were moving from like a 1,800 square foot home to a 3,000 square foot home. The basement was like 1,000 square feet, enough to accommodate all of the furniture they were moving. But it was like, oh, your seller's not moving out in time. I said, no, you gave her until the 3rd. So these were fires that were adding up that really didn't have to be a fire at all, right? We could have just said, no, we're not closing until the 6th and took a chance. Or we could have closed and just everybody had to accommodate the seller. But a lot of this could have been prevented too, right? We later found out we probably could have closed sooner. Everybody was just dragging their feet, getting paperwork and all of this type of stuff. The seller wasn't in no rush to sell. She like, I got into the 6th.
Yeah, but the person get laid off, then your buyer goes.
But see, that's the thing. That happened all in the mix of the deal. So then everybody started running, rush to get this done because it was a potential strike getting ready to happen.
A huge fire. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The little fire and the big fire. Big fire means you can lose everything.
But it's like you either close and work a couple weeks out or you risk not closing at all. So it's like occupancy becomes a fire. Appliances become a fire. I had people sell a house and move, and they took the refrigerator when they wasn't supposed to. So you have these after closing fires that you have to deal with. That's like, man, if you just stick to the contract or somebody explains stuff up front and you follow directions, you won't have most of the issues you have.
That fire you just described, though, that the buyers would, if I was the seller, I allowed you to close sooner than we were supposed to.
Right.
But as far as my occupancy, you're gonna give me until the date that I had that was on the contract. I'm not changing my date that I'm moving. You're gonna have to rent you a pod or whatever you're gonna have to do. But I'm not about to inconvenience myself.
Yeah.
But they were nice.
And she needed the money from the sale in order to move.
Right.
So it was like I couldn't move. And then, so here's the other thing. We closed Thursday. On Friday, when the money came in from the other title company, it was still about $600 short. We had to wait for the buyer to send that $600 before it confirmed. The seller didn't get their money until Monday. So it was like all her moving arrangements, everything she wanted to order and get deposits on and everything couldn't happen. So it's like you start adding on this little stuff, you start changing stuff, and it just add one fire after another, just start adding up.
We didn't get a clear to close until day of closing. So now, same thing, split title. Both title companies have to be on board. I'm on the phone with my title company, basically like, hey, I'm supposed to close this thing Friday. Can you leave space on the calendar? And they're like, yeah, cool, no problem. But it still is a press.
Right.
Because the whole time people, emailing like, we need this. We still haven't got this from the lender. We still haven't got that from the lender. We're supposed to close at 4 o'clock, and the borrowers that doesn't get off work to 2 at the bank, 2:30, 3 o'clock. Then the buyer's agent is texting talking about something. Yeah, they got a fraud alert. We're still at the bank. It's held up.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yep.
So, but the thing that made it a problem was they had an appraisal issue. So we had to change like the pricing. So the seller had originally allowed to, give some concessions.
Yeah.
So then they pull back on the concessions. So now the borrower needs more money to close.
They pull back because it appraised for less?
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
They
so explain to the viewer. So you had price, let's say price was $200,000, seller giving $5,000 in concessions, which means the seller's net basis was like $195. But then it appraised for $195, and the seller's like, no, I'm not still giving up $5,000. So now the buyer has to come up with additional $5,000.
Yep.
And that's a fire in itself.
Exactly.
Buyers still, because they knew that a long time ago.
So
They knew that way before we get into the closing. They knew that at least a couple weeks before the closing.
Right.
Right. But so the pay schedule, the reason why we were having a problem is because the borrower didn't get paid until Friday, which was the closing date.
Right.
Which we needed our clear because the underwriters needed to see the funds available.
Right.
There's no funds available because the borrower hasn't been paid yet.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, concession addendum.
Yeah.
But it ended up working out because now they just had to be charged for the appliances. I mean, coming from the creative era, financing era is like a wonderful thing because I'm sitting there like, okay, no one else is about to be thinking about this. My seller has to close this. And then I'm like, he can't be put at risk.
Right.
So what do we do?
Yeah.
Y'all got to pay for these appliances. We will give you X amount of dollars
Right.
towards your cost to close.
Yep.
And you have to bring a check for your appliances.
Yep. And then we get a lot of, like, I got issues where it's seller doing repairs. So you got the appraiser come out, seller do the repairs, so they don't do the repairs right and get re-inspected and they don't pass. And they don't see the consequences of that or not doing it right until later down the line because that delays the closing. And they can't tie the two, they don't understand those two tie together. So you can't get a clear close until we pass re-inspection. Well, if it takes you 4 weeks to do the repairs and then you still didn't do them right, now you at the mercy of when the appraiser can come back out which could be 3 days, it can be 7 days. Then when they come back out and do their reinspection, and they still got to turn in a report. So you possibly added another week and a half to 2 weeks onto the deal. And as soon as they get it, they're like, when can we close? And I'm like, no, just because they came back out don't mean we close tomorrow.
Right.
And then it's all the fuss. Well, I did all the repairs and they kept messing with me about the repairs. No, you waited 4 weeks to start them. You know, so a lot of fires can be prevented, again, by people being proactive, doing what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it.
But also wisdom. Like, you got to know what fires to look out for.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the big thing. And what you're talking about, like the creative, you know, we had to do everything back in the, you know, to get deals done. So now I feel like it's easy. Like, I don't be tripping. So everybody else be going crazy. Right. They be screaming and yelling and all that stuff. I'd be relaxing because I got it under control.
Right.
So you texting everybody, expecting everybody else to be going crazy, bumping into walls. He'll be sitting back there like, I ain't sweating, but you go bump into walls.
Well, so I pay attention, or I am proactive. You know what I mean? I'm sitting around waiting for issues to happen. I'm all right. You send me that video, right?
Yeah,
that's me. You know what I'm saying? The one sitting there. All right, what can go wrong here? Let me figure out all those issues, and let me jump on them right now before they become an issue. And you may be like, sometimes you do that, but sometimes you be like, that's not even an issue right now.
Yeah, you address it. You'll address it if it comes up. When it comes up.
Like what?
Oh,
So because like for me, it's not. So yeah, some things are not issues.
Right.
But if it's not going to be, I'm not about to be having an employment issue. I'm not about to be having an earnest money deposit issue. Right. I'm not about to have a verification of funds issue. Right. Because the thing that I do, so that's great. We're going to segue into, because I'm thinking about the things that you can be proactive about. Right. So that's like the conversation I'm having with like the clients. There are certain things that I can be proactive about. Right. There are other things that is going to be a little hard on now, what we could probably get back to doing, which I don't know what people do in other areas. Right. And I know we only start doing this in this area for a set amount of time, but we can start asking for proof of funds to close, because that's not unheard of. You know, I've seen it happen before, to where you get a purchase agreement and you get your pre-approval letter, but now you know, the seller wants proof of funds that you can, but you're going to be able to close.
Because that be an excuse of why we can't. I'm dealing with that right now.
That's the way that we can be proactive for that.
Like I said, but what if they don't have the proof of funds? Y'all going to jump out the deal?
You explain to your seller, look, they need this, they don't have this. Are you willing to wait for them to get this? No. Because it's a chance they can't close. I'm dealing with that right now. We got the deal. Everything is clear. Buyer agent called me and said, oh, the buyer had to pay off like a couple thousand or something on some of their debt in order to get final approval. So now that leaves them that $2,000 or $3,000 short. Do you think your seller be willing to give extra concessions? We already given $6,000. So now you want another $3,000 in concessions. All I can do is ask the seller, but if we would have known that up front, you know, we probably wouldn't accepted that deal because we had other deals.
And that's what I was more so talking about. Right. So yeah, the answer to the question is, if you don't have proof of funds when that offer comes over, but the other offer does, then you go with the offer that was able to supply the proof of funds. Right. I guess that's in the event that you have a few offers to choose from. Right. Because sometimes there's only the one. Yeah.
Right. But sometimes though, you can be so focused on being proactive on a fire that hasn't started or may not have started, that you're letting the current fire burn too much. So like I'm on the phone with an agent, and we're still waiting for an updated payoff because we took so long to pay off. And the lender is saying as soon as we get you a payoff is 48 hours. I'm like, no, you lying. Y'all could do it. Y'all can have it today if y'all want, right? Right. So we're trying to close this deal on a Friday. It's a Wednesday when we're making these calls. So I know I need to update a payoff on my side, on the list side. His buyer just got it clear to close, and we're trying to close this on Friday, but one of the sellers is out of town. So I'm trying to see if we're going to do Pabaso, remote closing for the seller, power of attorney or something. So I got to fix that I also got to fix getting this payoff. I need the seller call. I need the title company call. Everybody need to call to get this done, right? He's talking to me about 15 minutes about occupancy. And I'm like, dude, we're not even there yet. You know what I'm saying? You want to close Friday because your buyer, if they stay an extra day, they got to pay a month for their rent. So they want to move right away, and I get that. But you're on the phone with me at 4:30 talking to me about occupancy. I need to make some calls because everybody going to start shutting down at 5 o'clock. Probably they already shutting down. So if I don't get other people on the phone, we won't have a closing Friday, and your buyer won't be able to move Monday anyway. Right? So sometimes you're dealing with one fire, but somebody's trying to pull you into something that's so far ahead that's irrelevant right now at this moment. And we get that a lot too.
Yeah, but so we can control that. It's controllable, right? So we don't have to wait until, we run into those issues all the time with the closing going past the payoff date. You know what I mean? So now you just got to start at least a week ahead of time. You know what I mean? If you're a week and you ain't got your clear to close yet, you either order that next payoff ahead of time.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's really supposed to be something that the title companies are doing, but like you said, we running around doing everybody else's job. All right. So we've talked a little bit about managing clients' expectations, just asking everybody to have some patience, because we do kind of got to be that facilitator to where, I work for you, but I see a lot in the business. I don't see anything eyebrow raising yet, but when I do, I'll let you know. Cause that's pretty much has been some of the conversations I've had to have recently. Like, okay, everything was good, but now I'm getting a little worried. We've talked about a couple types of fires, like the stories and things like that or whatever. What are some things that you guys would tell people to like remember going forward? Like I want to talk about concerns though. Like, what are when you're did we just talk about that? And when you're in the midst of the fire, what are the concerns from each side? Like, the buyer has a specific set of concerns, and then the seller is going to have a specific set of concerns when there's a fire that's happening.
I looked at how it's going to impact everybody, because sometimes if you don't address both people's concerns or how it's impacting them on their side, that can actually come back and make the fire worse. So again, if seller is selling a home in order to buy and they expect to close by a certain date, if we don't meet this closing deadline and the seller miss out on their next property, you may risk the seller changing their mind. You may risk the seller needing occupancy. It can have a trickle down effect where it starts giving you the reverse outcome that you were expecting. On the buy side, like I said, with this buyer, they were already short of funds. If we don't close on this date and they don't get occupancy, now they got to pay rent for the next month. Or even if we push the closing back a week and they choose not to pay rent because they like, I'm moving in a couple of days anyway. Let's say the lender says, okay, you there, we need to make sure you pay your rent, which is not likely to happen, but it can, right? You just got so many moving parts that you can let something slip up or somebody think it's not a big deal, but it can kill the deal pretty much.
Reggie's original answer is to me, but I think from everybody's side. I got to pay attention to everybody's potential issues. I'm looking for all the red flags that I need to look for.
Right.
And you see a lot of that stuff in early on in the purchase agreement, in the EMD, dollar amount. You see a lot of that. You can catch kind of early.
I actually told my assistant today I was going over certain deals, and I reminded her. I said, "Remember when we first got this offer and we were 1 week into the deal? I told the seller we might need to cancel this deal because of the way the buyer was coming back with inspection issues and this, and up until the day of closing, they were just coming back. Every time we solved one problem, another problem would get created. So sometimes, some deals, if you know early on, if one of the parties is just not going to cooperate right, sometimes it's best to just kill the deal early and start over with some. but it's when you tie it up 4 weeks into it and all that.
Nightmare like this stuff, you know what I mean?
You gotta listen to, like, you know, when you're working for someone, and I think this could potentially be on both ends, but when you're doing that walkthrough of the property with your seller, before probably like putting it on the market, and you're like, okay, we got inspections, whether it be private inspection, what the appraiser is gonna do within their report.
Right.
And you point out certain things. That was another thing that just happened this week. And I'm like, I specifically told my client, like, you know, that right there, it's more than likely going to be an issue.
Right.
Probably want to address it. And sure enough, you know, we write, you know, supposed to be closing, and the underwriters are like, that has to be fixed.
Right.
We could have did this 4 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's on the, that's
you know what I get? I get people, they be like, that was like that when I brought it, right? And I'll be like, yeah, you brought it for 80,000. Now we selling it for 380. And if you want to sell it to me for 80,000, I'll be happy to take that issue, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, sometimes people just hard-headed. Yeah. They don't want to listen. They don't want to put the effort in, not realizing what they're getting for the little chunk change that they don't spend on those repairs.
Mm-hmm.
2 questions.
Yep.
First one, what have you guys done to save a deal? To extinguish a fire?
I had to lower my commission, which I hate. But from a financial standpoint, you look at it like, okay, if I start over with this client buyer, if you're a buyer's agent, you got to go back out showing properties again. Mm-hmm. And all of that. Who knows how long that's going to take. On the list side, sometimes you just want to add some closure. So I'm not saying like you're going to cut your commission thousands, because sometimes it's cheaper just to start over, to be honest. But I've lowered commission. What else? I've helped people move. I've taken clients to Zemas to pawn some jewelry because they needed money for closing. I put them in touch with a real good attorney that allowed them to pay them like on sort of like payment plan, because they needed their LLC documents done right, and they were all screwed up. They had like an operating agreement template that they had, and it was some language in there that just wasn't good for what they were trying to do. It was going to put them at risk when they sold the property because of the way the language, it was going to put the initial person that I was representing at risk, because all his partners were investors from out of state, and they all had attorneys and he didn't, but they were making him liable for everything because he was here locally, and he was like the one kind of managing everything. And I was like, yeah, we can closing wasn't the issue. The issue was that operating agreement, how it was worded. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff you do. But the helping people move and going to Zemas was probably
them big. That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
I got a lot of stuff, but I'm a really good critical thinker, problem solver. So I think of some of the craziest ones. Maybe I've had to negotiate people moving into the house prior to purchasing the house, where they had to pay rent.
Yep.
Up until, you know what I mean? And that was an issue, because now these people were living in Las Vegas. This was another agent too. So the agent was living in Las Vegas, and she still had her furniture here in Michigan. And so she had to let the people move in with her furniture.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then after they closed, she needed to get in and get her furniture out.
Right.
But they wasn't like making that easy. You know what I mean? So I had that. I had another couple that was moving from New York, and they didn't finish the, I was out in, where was that, Milan.
Yeah.
They didn't finish their repairs. Yeah, it was the repair of that water softener, whatever it was. And so I had to negotiate them moving in. They wouldn't let them moving furniture or anything in there.
Right.
But they had to sleep in that vacant house like damn near a week to, so that they can finish the water softener repair, or it was the radon test or something. It was some kind of test, some type of test. But we had to But they were scared to let them in there because they like, if we let you in here as a tenant, you're gonna have tenant rights. We'll have to evict you in them, you know, in the event we don't close. So we had a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, same thing, you know, probably offering some funds toward the trans. That's a recent one too. Like, you know, okay, let me break my calculator out real quick. This is what, okay, I can, you know what? To avoid having to take you out or my showing assistant having to go out with you anymore. And no, just if it's this holding this up, let's just get it done.
Right.
Let's just give you these funds so you can get these repairs that you feel like are a deal killer done. Right. Which, I mean, we're talking about really minor things.
Yeah, and I've hired contractors before.
And then I had a contractor basically like, I'll do it. No, you won't. No, because these people are not reasonable.
Yeah.
The thing that bothers me a little bit though is when you work for months for an individual,
right,
and you're showing up, and then you got other people on your team showing up, and then you're driving miles, right, and people just are okay with, sure, you can give us money, but that is like, you know what? No, it was nice. I'm glad that, you know, we were able to help you guys find your next home or your new home, but you have a blessed one.
Yeah. Well, it's perfect what pattern for me. So I'm huge. I'm big on no. Only way I would give up some of my commission is if somebody needed it. You know what I mean? I'm not giving up commission for them people that you just described that are just greedy.
Right.
I don't care. We can walk away from the deal. Nobody's going, you know what I mean? We're all going to lose here then. You know what I mean?
And everything on fire. Set everything.
Okay. I'm not doing it.
Sometimes it's best to not close. I tell people that all the time. I had a deal recently where they did their inspection, then they did their appraisal. They had the inspector come back out during the final walkthrough. They found an area. They said it was there because I seen it there when I listed the property, but it was like some peel and paint. They said it was water damage, but it was no water stains there. I'm like, all right. It was an area in the kitchen where they was like cooking. I guess the steam was coming up and cooling the paint. That was there when I listed the property, but they wanted that done. Then they came back. They wanted like $2,500 repair credit. The seller said, no. I said, we can just not close. If your buyer, my seller was that firm. They wasn't doing anything. So then finally the seller's brother who was living there said he would just fix it, meaning he would basically paint it. They moved in and they was like, well, it wasn't done right. We want receipts and all this. And like the seller, now the seller's brother, you know, they had occupancy. So now they don't want to sign over the occupancy money because they want part of it for the damage. And I'm like, it was like those two different things. You got your damage money, you got your occupancy money. And it's like, so sometimes these fires come after, but I said 3 times, let's just cancel this deal because the seller's not budging. I said either we can not close or you just take it as it is.
I didn't do my second thing, but I'm still gonna wait because I got something on that. That just okay. So I told my sellers when we negotiated occupancy, I said this agent for whatever reason did not put a damage escrow in here.
Right.
They may notice it, they may not notice it, but I'm not their agent to call it to their attention. So we closed. And the buyer was not the most happy. One of the things was a major concern that was taken care of. Another thing was an actual damage when they bought the house through the sale of the house, everything, the toilet paper was falling from the wall. It was always like that. And the third thing was like minimal. So the buyer and seller handled key exchange.
Right.
Then a week later, we're trying to get the occupancy, the key exchange form signed so that everybody's monies could be released.
Right.
So the buyer's agent is trying to hold it up, basically like, well, what about these things? And what about that thing? And what about this? And so I said, okay, I talked to my client and I'm like, you know what? Take this key exchange. You know how y'all exchange keys together?
Right.
When they should have signed it, the day you gave them keys, take this back to them. Have them sign it. They signed it, sent it over to the title company and everything is all good. Buyer's agent is texting me like a day or two later, like, what are we going to do about these leftover items? And I'm like, oh, all those things are taken care of. The key exchange form has been signed and we're all set. And so buyer's agent comes back, says, well, how did you get that done? Wasn't that supposed to go through me or whoever the other person was, the co-agent?
Right.
And I'm like, well, who did the key exchange go through?
Right.
When the form was supposed to be signed, when the keys were given, the form was supposed to be signed. I didn't say this, but you never held a damage escrow.
Right.
So what you thought yours were good?
So how are you trying to hold their key exchange form hostage and they have keys and have moved into the property?
Yeah. I had somebody try to do that with a toilet. So they had all the inspections, everything. Occupancy was like 10 days. They came back. So you know how we had a water escrow. So like $90 was coming out of the escrow and the key exchange. So they signed everything, but they added, some of the forms have damage amount and they have disbursements to how much going to seller, buyer. So they had an amount on there and they wrote on there for toilet repair. And my seller's like, no, I'm not signing that. Mm-hmm. Like you inspected that toilet twice and you moved in and you wait like 20 days because we didn't get all the forms till we got the water bill, the key. It was like a disbursement form this particular title company had. So they wanted to disperse everything and they kept sending it back with the toilet repair on there. And it's like, that's not even an issue. You can't hold the water escrow and the key occupancy, form hostage because of a toilet repair. And again, they didn't have a damage thing in there.
Did they move in?
But yeah, they had been staying there.
How we not gonna damage the toilet?
Oh yeah, no.
Right.
So, but they're not getting the keys. I don't know. I just felt like deal everybody has. So at that point, before the key exchange, all right, you want the keys, right?
Right.
And then we want our money back.
Right.
So everything gonna happen right here.
Right.
And if everybody not happy, then all right, we'll walk away or we'll go back. You're not getting keys. Same way we're not signing. Same way you're not signing the key exchange. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to keep my leverage at all times.
Yeah.
Sometimes people be giving their leverage up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what I don't do. You know what I mean?
That's true. Because even when they did that, I said, y'all can handle that way if you want to.
Right.
But, we need to have the form signed.
You want to get in your house. You want to get in your house? All right, then you just sign this key exchange.
And I don't think they better, but that's my time.
It ended up costing the seller because they paying a daily rate.
It's going to cost everybody, unfortunately. Right. It's unfortunate, but you're not about to get everything you need, and you're not about to have your keys and then you're holding up my client's money.
But sometimes, and that's the thing, sometimes the agents are murking up the deal, and I feel like that's what was happening. I talked to my clients, and I told them, I said, I don't feel like this is the buyer. I feel like this is their agent. Because y'all have had a rapport. You guys have started to let them move their things in a little bit early. Y'all, this person, but I don't even know the buyer's name, and I got the contract. So I think that I'm pretty sure this is their agent. And so when they went to do what they had today, it had no problems. He sent me the form right back. There was nothing.
But sometimes people will be nice. The seller and buyer be nice to each other, but they'll go back and tell their agent what they're unhappy with, and then it comes across from the agent. But I agree with you because I've had deals where we had like the seller moved out, but they had like debris in the garage. But because the buyer needed to move and close, they was like, okay, we can get the house cleaned out, but we can't get everything out of the garage. Just hold $1,000 in escrow. Mm-hmm. So the seller came back like that Monday or whatever over the weekend and cleaned out the garage, but it was stuff they left out for pickup. So the agent calls and was like, my buyer think they should get the $1,000 because they left stuff out for pickup. Well, garbage day was next day. That's how he knew he could leave it out. It was like, no, well, it's out there and they might get a ticket. No, they're not getting a ticket. But I'm like, so the seller actually talked to the buyer while he was there cleaning, because that's the only way he had access to the garage. And he left it out and he explained garbage day and all of that. And he was like, no, we just talked. She didn't say anything to me about it. But it was the agent, I guess, trying to make sure they went above and beyond. But it just created so much tension because now my seller was mad. He had called his attorney. The attorneys called us over this $1,000. And I'm like, man, you didn't spend a retainer fee. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Crazy stuff.
But they wouldn't have got them keys without
All right, so we have went through. So this is like a like you're in the deal, and there's things, a lot of moving parts, and you've got problems happening. And so it sounds to me like you just need to have people on your team that can think and use their brains in order to be able to put out fires. I don't know how much of them. Some of them are avoidable, but fires happen all day, every day. It's the
thing is, you want to have somebody that's working for you as an agent or whatever professionals you work with. This is where having somebody with experience comes in, because they've probably seen all these different issues and they can prevent them from happening in the first place. But you have to listen.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, oh, that's not an issue, or I'll take care of it later. If they say you should do this first or by this date, then you should do it first or by that date. So, yeah, but having that experience, because there's some good agents out there, they just haven't done enough transactions and faced enough issues to know how to solve most problems.
Yep.
Solve the problems.
Well, that is a wrap.